Hello, my MFA 608 students, and welcome to Module 9. And if you've taken any other courses at Southern New Hampshire, which you probably have, and yeah, you'll understand that Module 9 is when we do our final submission. This is the big one. Woohoo! So let's get right to it. All right, go to the learning objectives. Yeah, we're not going to spend time reading these, okay? Because we're just going to go through that as we go through the assignments. Basically, this is all the stuff that's going to be covered in the final project, so don't get hung up on that, okay? Module overview. Basically, some of you, if you've given me feedback, and especially as you did the assignment from Module 7, kind of stated, hey, I don't really know that this is really what I want to do, and stuff will change, whatever. But remember that your plans will change as you and your career evolve. It's a good idea just to have at least this knowledge you learned in this class so you can go back on it, okay? And you need to have a plan going forward. That's kind of why we did the one for, Module 7 is what's your plan? People say, well, I don't really need to do this. Okay, that's sometimes it's kind of like the way of saying, well, why should I write a first draft if I'm just going to have to revise it anyway? Huh? No, you need to go in with at least some idea that what you're doing, and then you just kind of roll with the changes. So anyway, keep that in mind. All right, so let's get right to it, which is modular glance. Well, what are we doing? Well, you're going to submit the final project. Boom, 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 boom. Let's spend the most of the time on that one. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the submission. Now, if you look at this, it can freak you out, and don't let it freak you out, okay? The good news is that you've already done most of this, and the better news is it's just a chance for you to clean it up, okay? This all up here is the why of what you're going to be doing, okay? We're going to be taking the 3 major projects that you worked on. I think you submitted them in modules 3, 5, and 7, and you're basically going to put them together and combine them and put them as your final project. But it's not just a matter of copying and pasting, okay? There are 3 parts to this assignment, okay? Part 1, you will explain your philosophy and coaching. Hey, guess what? That's the paper you wrote for Module 3, and then you gave it in Module 4 for your peers to give you feedback. Part 2, you're going to explain your philosophical, pedagogical approach, okay, in the form of a cover letter or promotional material. Hey, that's what you did in Module 5, okay? You got feedback from me, and then you got feedback from your peers. And in part 3, you will propose a career plan. Hey, guess what? You did that in Module 7 and got feedback from your peers in Module 8. Okay, so you've already done these things. Okay, you're like, well, great. I'm just going to copy and paste these and put them in. No, you're not. Okay, because this is something that if you haven't learned about Southern New Hampshire, you're about to learn it. Okay, these are the things that you need to address in each one of those parts. And if you did the correctly the first time around, you are in good shape. You're off to a great start, okay? But you need to revise these, okay? And you need to polish them up, okay, as it were. Now, if you'll notice, it kind of breaks down. Part 1 is 2 to 3 pages. This cover letter is 1 to 2 pages. Career plan 8 to 10 pages. Yeah, no. Okay, don't worry about the end of 8 to 10 pages. We're not hung up on the page length. We're hung up on whether you covered these things. So here's the big secret. Here's the rubric. Now, up to this point in time, whenever you've turned in an assignment, you basically had 3 grading options. You had basically you did it, you kind of did it, or you didn't do it. Okay? And no. So for the final project, they break it up into more. Agree with distinction, agree with reservation, disagree, not evident. And those are defined down here. So how do you earn agree with distinction? Okay, well, it says you have to have explained this with exceptional insight. What does exceptional insight even mean? Is that subjective? Well, it can be, but this is what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, and the first thing I'm going to look at is on this particular paper, are you clearly addressing the pedagogical philosophy on coaching and mentoring? And are you giving examples or reasoning? Are you backing up your philosophy with reasoning and evidence and examples? Okay, that would give you the exceptional insight by giving more examples and philosophy to the philosophy. If you just state your philosophy, you will get a degree with reservation. Okay, if you state your philosophy and kind of just give a little blurb of why that's the case, you'll get a degree. If you state your philosophy and then you give a sentence or 2 or 3, you can even paragraphs. Okay, not you don't have to put a whole bunch of paragraphs for each one of these, but give me solid evidence and reasoning behind each one of these approaches, and that's how you get a degree with distinction. How do you get a disagree? Well, basically, if you say, hey, my pedagogical philosophy on coaching and mentoring is that Subway is a great place to get lunch. I'd be like, okay, that's not what a pedagogical philosophy is. Disagree. You did not answer the question. Okay, it's not that I disagree with your philosophy. It's I disagree that you even addressed what you were supposed to address. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing. So you basically, what I would do if I were you is I would go back over the different assignments that you've done thus far, look at the feedback that I gave you, and look at the feedback that your peers gave you on things that you can improve upon. Now, if you did well, let's say on this one right here, you earned full points, okay? Well, that would probably earn you an agree. Actually down here, an agree. Because basically, for the most part, you explained, although some of you really need to break these down into more specific areas. You can't really, some of you kind of just jumbled these together. You need to break it down, each one of these, okay? And clearly state, okay, this is what I'm talking about. Here's some examples. This is what I'm talking about. Here's some examples. That's what I'm looking for, okay? For some of you, you kind of, this editing techniques and system revision and, integrating techniques, okay, and discussing this, some of you kind of jumbled this all together. Okay, well, that's not going to earn you a very good grade. Okay. And to make things even more exciting, your assignments up to this point in time have been, worth 10, 20, 30. I think the highest is worth like 70 points. This final project is worth 400. I think it's worth like 40% of your overall grade. Okay. So, again, the way that I would approach this is very simple. I would simply take what I've learned, take what I've done, read over it. Have I clearly talked about this? Do I have an example? Maybe add another one. Okay, same with this. Example, maybe add another one. Have I given an example? Oh, I didn't. Give a couple of examples. The more evidence you can provide will, make it very clear that I would agree with distinction, because you have given exceptional insight connecting the content and the details with evidence. You understand that? Yeah. Okay. It is, I try to be as fair and impartial as I can be, and I try to grade this based on your work, not on my, I do have to make some judgment calls. But for this final project, it's a big deal. So you need to really make sure that you are being abundantly clear that you're addressing each one of these points, and you are giving the evidence and the backup to do that. Okay. If you simply have turned in what you've done before, you will not agree with distinction probably across the board. I will compare what you've done to what you're before to what you're doing now. There needs to be revision. There needs to be improvement. That is just part of the game. I take a lot of time and effort to put into grading these, and so please understand that is really, in your best interest. I want to make sure that you are earning the grade that you're going to be getting. I am not trying to make your life harder. I am just trying to enforce the academic standards at Southern New Hampshire. Okay, with all that being said, you can do this. You can do this. Think about this. If you've done the work this semester, you've already done most of this. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time, but you don't have to create all these from scratch. You can just go back in and take what you've done. Now, some of you need to, especially for this career plan, you need to really break down some of these into separate paragraphs and write them out. But again, you have a first draft from which you can work. All right. You can do this. You absolutely can do this. And that's really it for this module. Because the very next thing, if I click over, then we go over, here we are to module 10. And we'll talk about that next week. So that's it for module 9. Now go forth and conquer.